I never imagined that locking a man in my office would lead to a heartbreaking revelation. The weight of that moment hangs heavy in my chest as I replay it over and over. I can still feel the cold metal of the lock beneath my trembling fingers. The air was thick with tension, buzzing like a live wire. I wanted to scream, to cry. But instead, I stood there, frozen. His eyes were wild, darting around the cramped room like a cornered animal. Fear etched into every line of his face, but there was something else to desperation. It was a strange cocktail of emotions swirling around us. I never expected this. None of it felt real. I had spent years building my career. I was on top of the world. But this was chaos. Outside my office, the world thrummed with life, but inside, it was silent. An eerie calm washed over me, broken only by the ticking clock on the wall. I could feel my heart racing, each thud echoing in my ears. It was all I could hear. My family, my friends, they didn't know. No one knew the heavy burden I carried. They thought I was strong, that I had it all figured out. But I was crumbling, falling apart bit by bit. And now here he was, a man I barely knew, bursting into my carefully built life. The truth of the matter hung in the air between us like a live grenade, ticking down to an inevitable explosion. I learned that day that secrets have a way of clawing their way to the surface. And for each truth revealed, there's a price. I could see the pain in his eyes, but I was too afraid to ask why he was there. What had pushed him to this brink? Instead, I decided to confront him. "Why are you really here?" I demanded, my voice shaky but firm. He took a step back, the truth hovering just out of reach. The way he hesitated lingered like a storm cloud, thickening the atmosphere around us. I felt my pulse quicken, the urgency of our confrontation palpable. It felt like we were across a chasm from one another, both standing on the edge, teetering on the brink of something powerful. "What do you want from me?" he finally whispered, but I could hear the weight of his desperation. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. My chest constricted, a painful tightness that almost stole my breath. A sudden realization crashed over me like ice water. Was I ready for the truth? Could I handle what he was about to reveal? Please, the tremor in his voice cut through the silence, pressing against my heart. In that moment, I understood that we were both locked in this together, trapped in a web of our own making. I felt the walls closing in. I needed to know, but the thought terrified me. I could feel the tension winding between us, the air electric with anticipation. Would his answer lead to answers, or would it tear everything apart? I took a deep breath, ready to push for the truth, knowing that it could change everything. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. A pause hung between us, heavy and suffocating. I could see the pulse in his neck fluttering under the pressure of his own emotions, a frantic heartbeat saying what his lips could not. I knew that whatever truth he held could unwind everything. My carefully structured world was teetering on the edge of oblivion. "Just tell me," my voice broke, raw and brittle. I fought against the dread pooling in my stomach, a dark, swirling mass that threatened to swallow me whole. "What brought you here?" He took a breath, a shuddering gasp that felt like a last-ditch effort to find courage. His eyes met mine, shimmering with unshed tears, and for the first time, there was a softness there that disarmed me. It caught me off guard, a moment of humanity crackling in the air between our guarded hearts. "I had no choice," he finally murmured, his voice trembling. "I need you to understand. Everything you believe about me, it's not true. I didn't come here to hurt you." There was a vulnerability to his words, a plea for understanding that tugged at something deep inside me. I could feel the walls of my office closing in, trapping all the raw emotion. I was on the brink of unraveling, not just from what he was saying, but from the constant realization that what was happening here was somehow urgent, vital, and inevitable. I could not allow myself to feel empathy for the man who had barged into my life, had literally and metaphorically locked me in this moment with him. But as I stood there, the steel resolve I had held onto began to waver. Why should I trust you? The question escaped my lips before I could catch it, laced in a desperation I could hardly disguise. He hesitated, and I could see the weight of his secrets settling heavily on his shoulders. Because I had to find you. I thought you were the only one who could help. My sister, she's gone. The words ignited a flame in my chest, an inexplicable connection sparking between us. What do you mean? I asked, a lump forming in my throat. His eyes were pleading, drawing me into a world of heartache that I felt I could barely grasp. She went missing, he said, his voice breaking as if the truth was a boulder sitting on his soul. And I know people are looking for her, but I think she's in trouble, and it's something bigger than any of us understand. I thought he faltered, and I felt the fragile bridge forming between us tremble under the weight of his revelation. His sister, lost and possibly in danger. My instincts twisted painfully. The world outside my office continued unaware, but here, deep in the quiet sanctuary of my panic, everything shattered. Why not go to the police? I heard myself ask, defenses rising like a protective wall around my heart, because he paused, taking a moment to search for words that felt truthful and right. They're involved. I can't trust them. Every instinct screamed at me to remain dedicated, to walk away from this, to lock the door and let the chaos remain outside. Yet, buried deep inside was a small tremor of compassion. A flicker of hope ignited in a dark corner of my heart, sparked by the thought that perhaps I could help him, help them. But at what cost? I could feel my own unraveling, spiraling in tandem with this man's desperation. I had devoted my life to a career. There was no room for loose ends, no time for messiness. In that moment of silence, I heard footsteps pass by in the hallway outside, grounding me in the reality of our situation. The unforgiving clock ticked steadily, a reminder that time was running out. And then, in a split-second decision, I dropped my defenses. Show me, I whispered, the words tumbling out before I could take them back. Show me what you have. Let me help you. His eyes widened in disbelief. I could see the flicker of hope illuminate his stunning azure irises. You mean it? Before I could respond, a strangled cry erupted from the hallway, followed by frantic voices and a handful of rushing footsteps. Panic surged through me like a tidal wave, and I turned towards the door, dread coiling tightly around my gut as I shouted, "What's happening?" He grabbed my arm, pulling me back with desperation. No, we can't let them in, but it was too late. The door swung open, revealing a group of men in dark suits, stern expressions etched on their faces. A foreboding chill swept into the room, suffocating the fragile bond we had just begun to forge. Step away from him, one of the men commanded, voice low and authoritative, and I felt a new wave of fear wash over me. The moment now hung like a pendulum waiting to strike, and I knew there was no turning back. Secrets were about to spill, and as I stood caught between two worlds, I couldn't help but wonder, what truth was worth uncovering when the price could be my own life? As the men in dark suits stepped further into the room, I realized I had crossed an invisible boundary that separated my ordinary existence from a world filled with shadows and secrets. They exuded a power that felt oppressive, their presence suffocating the air around us. I could see the man's expression shift, from hopeful to fearful in an instant, his vulnerability replaced by an instinctual need to protect himself. "Who are you?" I demanded, though my voice trembled with uncertainty. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, the fight-or-flight response clamoring for attention. The tallest of the men stepped closer, his sharp features illuminated by the fluorescent lights above. "What you're doing here," he began, but the man beside me interrupted with a rough urgency. "Please. You don't understand." He pulled away from me, raising his hands defensively as if to shield me from this sudden storm. "You have to listen. They're looking for my sister enough." The tall man snapped. "You're in way over your head, and this is your only chance to turn back." His voice was cold, and it sent a chill down my spine. From the corner of my eye, I saw reality slip away as confusion settled in. I felt the ground beneath me start to shift. My heart raced in an all-too-obvious fight against panic, threatening to break free as the weight of choice crashed down over my shoulders. I turned back to the man beside me, searching for a connection, for a reason to believe him. His anguished expression beckoned me closer, unraveling my fears just enough to flicker that same spark of empathy. "What do they want?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "They want to keep everything quiet," he murmured, glancing nervously at the men. "And I can't let them find her. She's in danger, and I thought you could help." Help? The word escaped my lips like a prayer. In this frantic moment, I felt an unexpected surge of defiance rise within me, fueled by the unbearable weight of uncertainty. How could I possibly help? The dark-suited men exchanged glances, their impatience building as I felt the gulf between us widen. My decision lingered like the delicate threads of a spider's web, vulnerable, yet holding me together. "Please, just listen to him," I implored, turning my attention back to the imposing men. "If she's in trouble, maybe I can assist in ways that don't get involved." "Miss," the tall man interrupted, stepping even closer, his breath acrid with the scent of judgment. "You have no idea what you're walking into." And yet, as those words hung in the air, a resolute sense of purpose blossomed inside me. Perhaps I was naive, but I had witnessed enough pain in my life to know that turning away was often the less courageous choice. "No, I won't stay silent." The room went still, my voice echoed, filling the space with a newfound defiance. But something shifted. The tension transformed from fear to a reluctant understanding. My heart raced, pulsing in time with the urgent decisions ahead. I would not be a bystander. I would take action, even if uncertainty masked my every thought. "Let's just hear him out," I continued, my eyes darting between the men's faces, searching for signs of concession. "If his sister is missing, and if we can help, we owe it to her to listen." The tension fractured slightly, and in that moment of vulnerability, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in the tall man's gaze. Perhaps he saw a reflection of determination within me, a reminder of the innocent hope that still existed amidst darkness. "Enough," he relented, directing the sharpness of authority back onto the man beside me. "But make it quick. And understand the consequences if you are lying." The man nodded vigorously, his confidence reinforced by the crack in the wall of hostility. "I swear I'm not lying. She's all I have left." In that fragile moment, both fear and hope wove an intricate dance around us. A decision lay before me that would unravel the truth of this man's reality and put myself in the path of an unseen danger. Yet, as I looked into his eyes, I couldn't deny the desperate sincerity that echoed there. But just as the words were about to spill forth, the heavy silence shattered with a crackling sound, and the office door burst open again. A figure stepped in, silhouetted against the harsh lights. This time it was a woman, her eyes a storm of determination, and she faced the room with unyielding intensity. "I know the truth," she declared, and her presence felt electric. All eyes turned to her as an unexpected tension swelled in the air, proof of an impending revelation that could either save us or seal our fate. In that instant, I sensed the ground shift once more, the thread of our destinies entwined and potentially unraveled. I had stepped into a labyrinth, and the way out was shrouded in uncertainty, leaving me suspended on the precipice of a truth that could change everything. The woman surveyed the room, her gaze piercing through the tension like a knife. She took a step inside, her confidence radiating, yet a hint of weariness lingered in the creases of her brow. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was familiar, someone from the shadows of my past, and her sudden appearance clawed at forgotten memories. "Who are you?" the tall man demanded, his tone a mix of fury and disbelief. Her lips curled slightly, not a smile but a semblance of resolve. "I'm someone who knows what's at stake here. You need to listen." His face hardened, yet I could see the wavering of his stoic walls. For just a fleeting moment, the vulnerable man beside me caught her gaze, a flicker of shared understanding igniting the air between them. "Please," he added, his voice trembling with urgency. "You have to help us. You have to save her." The room crackled with palpable energy as she took a breath, drawing the weight of our fears into a single moment. I was there the night she disappeared, she said slowly, her voice barely breaking above a whisper. And I know what they did. Shock rippled through me, dread seeped into every crevice of my heart. What do you know? I asked, stepping closer, drawn in by the gravity of her words. They think they've covered their tracks, but they've left a trail that leads back to the very men standing before us. Her finger pointed towards the dark-suited figures, and in that stark action, reality crashed around us like tidal waves. What do you mean? The tall man's face twisted with anger, but I could sense his uncertainty crackle beneath the surface. The truth was always right in front of you, the woman persisted, undeterred. But you've been blinded by your own fear. They didn't just take her, they took so much more than you know. It doesn't matter. He shot back, his voice rising. You weren't there. You don't understand. Don't I? She countered, her tone fierce now, echoing with the weight of shared pain and ghostly memories. You think I've forgotten? I couldn't save her then, but you have a choice now. You can save your sister. You can break this cycle of silence. As her words sunk in, I felt an oppressive heaviness settle on my chest. My thoughts swirled chaotically, the enormity of this revelation hitting me like a punch to the gut. Could it really be possible that this was all connected? The man beside me clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms, eyes shining like the surface of a storm-tossed sea. What do we do? How do we find her? First, she answered, her voice calming, we have to confront the truth, build trust in what we know to be real. Only then can we find her. The tension shifted in the air as her gaze fell on me. You're in this too, aren't you? I nodded, suddenly pulled deeper into the tide. What would you need me to do? Her smile was a glimmer of hope amidst the brewing darkness. The men in suits think they can silence us. They think they can keep us apart. But we're stronger together. We can uncover the facts before they can close in. Around me, time felt suspended, the electric charge of collective fear and shared ambition wrapping us tightly. Yet as her gaze held Minea command and an invitation, I felt the sharp edge of dread cutting through my resolve. But before I could commit my thoughts to words, the heavy atmosphere fractured again, and the silent tension broke as Keith, one of the men in suits, spoke with an air of mocking calmness. You really don't think you're prepared for what lies ahead, do you? His derisive words cut deeper, pricking at the very foundation of our resolve. You have no idea of the forces at play here, he continued, stepping closer, disdain dripping from his voice. Just try us, the woman shot back, her determination emerging like a beacon in the storm. We aren't afraid. Afraid? Keith chuckled, but the sound felt hollow. You should be. Because secrets have a way of devouring those who dare tread too close. His statement hung in the air, twisting and coiling around us, urging unspoken fears to bubble back to the surface. And as I glanced around, the flickering light overhead cast flickers of doubt, a montage of the unknown threads that bound us together. I held my breath, the weight of uncertainty heavy on my chest, wrestling with the knowledge that each of us had our own demons lurking behind the veils. It took a moment for me to realize the gravity of our situation. Each heartbeat felt like an invitation, an urge to delve deeper into a world that could very well consume us. But in that chaos, a sliver of hope persisted, reminding me that courage and kindness could flourish even amidst horror. Just as I opened my mouth to speak, there was a sudden, jarring crash from outside, and the room trembled. The heavy metal door groaned ominously as it burst inward, and in swept a surge of unfamiliar faces, a whirlwind that altered the course of everything we had just begun to unravel. My heart raced with fear and uncertainty. We were no longer alone, and I couldn't shake the sensation that everything was about to spin dangerously out of control. The sudden intrusion sent a shockwave through the room, and I instinctively stepped back, feeling the edges of panic begin to ripple in my chest. The intruders, faces masked and eyes fierce, disrupted the fragile thread of hope we had started to weave, the fragile alliance momentarily forgotten amidst the onslaught of imminent danger. Get down. The familiar voice of the tall man erupted as he lunged between the woman and the storm of chaos entering the room. I felt a strange mix of admiration and terror for his unwavering bravery, unsure of what was unfolding, but aware that everything hinged on our ability to stay united in this crisis. The masked figures moved with precision, their confidence a stark reminder of the authority they wielded. "We don't have time," one of them barked, shoving aside furniture as they made their way deeper into the heart of our fear. "We're here for the woman." "Hand her over." "Why? What do you want with her?" I found myself questioning, my voice quaking yet resolute as I stepped forward. The words of the woman burning fiercely in my mind. "We're stronger together." I had no idea what lay ahead, but the need to protect her, protect all of us, surged within me. "She knows too much." The lead intruder spat, a sneer tainting his features. "Things that could disrupt our plans. Now move." His gaze bore into each of us, and for a split second, I saw the fear lurking beneath his bravado a mere flicker, quickly masked by aggression. In that heartbeat, realities blurred. And it hit me that the woman was more valuable than any of us had comprehended. Her knowledge, her past intertwined with theirs, could unlock secrets we didn't know we were looking for, the very chains that bound us all. "Please, listen," the woman implored, her voice strong yet laced with trembling vulnerability. "If you take me, you're only sealing your own fate. There are more people involved in this than you realize." "What do you know?" the lead intruder questioned. There was a vulnerability to his anger, an indication that her words struck a chord dreaded by those who dared to silence the truth. "Everything," she said, her gaze defiant, meeting his fury with an unexpected calm. I could sense the tension rising, the very air thickening with unspoken revelations that sought to break free from the shackles of fear. In that moment, I felt a flicker of courage igniting in my heart and took a tentative step forward. "If you believe her, you might find the safety you're looking for." "You can't control the truth," I ventured, my heart throbbing painfully against my ribcage. "And if you're so concerned about your plans, then don't you want to know what she knows?" Silence fell over the room, the men halting in their tracks. Their expressions shifted subtly. I caught the glimmer of hesitation, the tug of possibility wrapping around the chaos like an unexpected embrace. "Enough." The lead intruder barked, his authority wavering as he struggled to maintain control. "We'll find out all we need to know another way." With that, he motioned sharply, and the others surged forward, taking hold of the woman's arms. The world around me exploded into chaos as she gasped, her figure yanked away, fear crystallizing her features into a haunting portrait. No. I screamed, stepping between them, desperation forcing a surge of adrenaline coursing through my veins. "We won't let you take her," but they were unrelenting, pushing past barriers both physical and emotional, and I felt the weight of helplessness crush me. Just when I thought the darkness would swallow us whole, a sudden voice echoed from the far corner of the room, a glimmer of unexpected kindness amid the storm. "Stop. Let her go." It was the man beside me, his resolve hardening into determination, his eyes reflecting fierce loyalty as he charged forward. Remarkably, he grabbed a fallen piece of furniture, brandishing it like a shield. In the surge of adrenaline, confusion, and hope, the air shifted again, reminding me that our strength lay in unity, in the bonds we were forging amid trauma. "They won't silence us," I found myself shouting, emboldened by our collective will to fight back. Suddenly, the sound of sirens broke through the chaos like a beacon of promise, echoing in the distance. A flicker of hope offered itself, a chance to escape from the grips of despair and darkness. But just as hope dared to take root, the lead intruder turned sharply towards the door, tension igniting within him. His eyes bored into mine, cold and calculating, revealing a cryptic smirk. "You won't get her back. We'll see you very soon." The ensuing moment felt suspended in time as he retreated, the rest following suit, leaving us reeling in disbelief. The door slammed shut with an abandon that rocked our world, the promise of uncertainty wrapping around us like a chilling embrace. My heart hammered painfully in my chest, the reality of what had just happened sinking in like a lead weight. The woman we had failed to protect her, and then, amidst the chaos and broken fragments of our night, a piece of paper fluttered to the floor, landing at my feet with precision. Slowly, I bent down to retrieve it, my fingers trembling as I unraveled the crumpled sheet. The words taunted me, striking like a bolt of lightning, illuminating the path before us. We know everything about you. Your past, your secrets. This isn't over, and with that shocking revelation, I was left standing at the precipice of despair, realizing we were now deeper in the web of intrigue than I had ever imagined, the darkness closing in again, clawing at the glimmer of hope as uncertainty loomed larger than ever. The room was still tinged with echoes of chaos, a haunting reminder of the woman being taken from us. My heart raced as I crushed the paper in my hand, a visceral reaction to the unnerving threat it posed. What have we gotten ourselves into? I muttered under my breath, the gravity of our situation sinking in, pulling me deeper into an ocean of uncertainty where hope felt more like a mirage. The air was thick with the scent of fear and adrenaline, a potent cocktail that amplified the tension radiating from every corner of the room. We stood in the aftermath, a motley group of survivors now united not just by circumstance, but by a harrowing responsibility. Around me, I could see the others struggling to grapple with the whirlwind of emotions. They wore fear like a shroud, and I could sense their minds racing for solutions, desperate to find the woman, to save her from whatever fate those intruders had in store. A plan, the man next to me murmured, as if the thought alone could somehow tie our fragmented reality back together. We need a plan. His voice was steady, a soothing balm against the chaotic backdrop of our thoughts. It ignited a flicker of resolve, and I clung to it, desperate to banish the darkness closing in on us. I glanced around the room, taking stock of our new reality. The remaining light flickered weakly overhead, casting dancing shadows that seemed to sway in rhythm with our collective anxiety. Where do we even start? I asked aloud, my voice trembling despite my efforts to appear strong. They know everything about us. We can't just sit here waiting for them to make their next move. Shaking off my moment of despair, the group began discussing what we could do to find her. Someone suggested gathering any information we still had about her. I was about to interject, to provide my own thoughts, when the sound of sirens grew closer, plunging us into silence once more. In that moment, the possibility of help surged within me, a thin thread of hope woven through the fear. Maybe it's the police, one of the women whispered, glancing at the window as bright lights reflected off the walls. They'll help us. But I could feel a heavy weight shift in my gut. What if they're not here for her? Or for us? I countered, my voice laced with concern. After all we'd witnessed, could we trust anyone, even those sworn to protect us? The truth was, I didn't know. The room held its breath, as if fearing the reality we had just begun to understand. Then we find her ourselves, the tall man declared, and his determination cut through the heavy air. No more waiting. Before we could devise our next steps, a knock echoed through the silence. The sound sent a chill through me, a mix of curiosity and terror. We exchanged frantic looks, unsure whether to welcome the visitor or brace ourselves for another confrontation. Hesitantly, I approached the door, my heart thudding in my chest. I opened it to find an officer, her uniform crisp and authoritative. I received a call about a disturbance, she said, scanning the room, her keen eyes absorbing our haggard expressions. What's going on? I instantly felt the weight of my instincts urging me to protect whatever secrets we held. It was just a misunderstanding, I replied swiftly, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. We're okay, she paused, studying me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. You don't look okay, she insisted, stepping forward as if trying to pierce through the facade. What really happened here? Before I could respond, the other guy burst forward, his voice urgent. They took her. A group of masked men. They knew things about us, all of us. The officer seemed taken aback, her large brown eyes widening. You need to come with me. We can help. And what if you can't? I asked, the quiet desperation within me boiling over. What if bringing in the authorities only made things worse? Just as uncertainty clouded the air, another figure emerged from the shadows behind the officer, a familiar silhouette that twisted the situation into something even more complicated. It was the lead intruder, stepping arrogantly between the officer and the door. You have no idea who you're dealing with, he said, a smile curling on his lips that danced between menace and amusement. But trust me, This isn't over. My heart sank as darkness strewn with confusion flooded our sanctuary once more. The officer's face turned pale, realization dawning upon her. She reached for her radio, but the lead intruder was faster, drawing her attention swiftly. "Let's keep this simple," he smirked. "You're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And as for you," he pointed a finger at me, "this is all just beginning." With that, time itself felt like it stopped, a painful pause that echoed with a million suppressed fears and wishes. His presence sent waves of uncertainty crashing over us again, and I realized I had underestimated the turmoil we now faced. As the world turned upside down yet again, I could only wonder whether hope had ever truly been within reach. The atmosphere in the room shifted palpably as the intruder's gaze settled on me, piercing through the haze of fear that had enveloped us. Somehow, the certainty and disdain in his expression made my skin crawl. "You should be careful who you trust," he warned, his voice smooth yet heavy with menace. "You have no allies here." I felt a chill run down my spine, every instinct screaming at me to retreat, to hide in the shadows where fear couldn't reach. Yet, against all odds, my resolve to protect those I had been thrown together with into this maelstrom surged forward. I stepped in front of the others instinctively, even as the other man beside me muttered harshly under his breath, urging that we should vacate, flee while we still could. "We're not going anywhere," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "You don't scare us." I could feel their eyes on me, half filled with admiration and half with despair. The officer beside me seemed to regain her composure, standing tall in the face of danger, her hand instinctively gripping her firearm, a thin line of courage sparking to life. But the intruder only chuckled, a low, mocking sound. "Oh, you don't even know what lies ahead." "This is nowhere near over," he taunted, his eyes glinting with wicked amusement. It was as though he reveled in the confusion and uncertainty swirling around us, and an unsettling sense of dread washed over me. What game was he playing? In the clamor of thoughts and fears, the officer turned with urgency, her voice slicing through the tension. "We need backup," she said, reaching for her radio again. The intruder only smirked, silently confident that neither she nor we would emerge unscathed from this encounter. Before we could process what might happen next, a sudden crash resonated from the hallway, a loud, shattering sound followed by voices and footsteps. The tension escalated. Who else was here? Were they friends or more foes? The officer's eyes widened in alarm, and she took a step back, poised and ready to fight, but the intruder stepped closer, danger radiating from him like heat from a flame. "He can't always protect you," he said, his eyes flicking between me and the officer. "And neither can the law." Then, as if to punctuate his threat, he pulled out a small device, pressing a button that sent a low hum trembling through the air. A flicker of red light surged to life, signaling a countdown. "Time's ticking, and the stakes are rising," he declared. "Don't say I didn't warn you." With one last look of mockery at our startled faces, he sprinted back through the door, disappearing into the shadows of the withering corridor. Panic surged through me as I turned to the officer. "We have Tono," she interrupted, her voice sharp as diamonds. "Stay behind me. I'll handle this." But I could see the glint of fear in her eyes, the uncertainty that mirrored my own. But as the countdown droned on, a knot of dread twisted tighter in my gut. We didn't have time to wait for backup if there was to be any. I looked back at the others, their faces reflecting a cacophony of emotions, despair, fear, and a flicker of stubborn determination. Then one of the women stepped forward, her voice shaking but resolute. "If he's going back to them, then we need to act. This might be our only chance to save her." I could see the disappointment in the other's eyes, unsure if this frail sense of hope could translate into action. I nodded, determination igniting within me. "We're not letting another moment slip through our fingers. She's counting on us." The clock continued to tick ominously, but my heartbeat resonated louder, driving me to forge a path ahead, one that, for all its uncertainty, promised the chance to rescue her from the grip of despair. The officer, realizing we were united in a common cause, looked at me, her determination rekindled. "Let's move. We don't let fear dictate our actions." As we stepped forward, motioning to follow her orders, the sound of an anguished scream echoed through the once still corridor, a heart-wrenching reminder of what was at stake. My blood ran cold. Were we too late? Suddenly, from the corner of my eye, I spotted a figure standing at the entrance of the hallway, silhouetted in the dim light that flickered from the overhead bulbs. A woman bound and gagged, shoulders slumped in despair. My heart dropped. "Help!" she cried suddenly, her eyes meeting mine with a recognition that shot through me like electric shock. Before I could respond, the chaos intensified around us and an unexpected figure emerged behind her. It was the lead intruder again, a malevolent grin stretching across his face, his words laced with mockery. You see, the game grows more interesting by the second. You might want to reconsider your options. Time was no longer our ally. Every second felt like a dagger plunging deeper into my heart. I could feel my breath quickening, the walls closing in, and I realized then with a sinking sensation of terror that this was more than just a rescue. It was becoming a battle for our very souls. Would we falter, or would we rise to meet the tempest head-on? The sound of the woman's desperate plea cut through the suffocating atmosphere like a knife, igniting a primal instinct in me to fight rather than flee. I took a step closer, even as the officer tightened her grip on her firearm, poised between caution and the burning need to act. "Stay back," she warned quietly, eyes narrowed on the lead intruder, whose grin seemed to widen with every heartbeat that passed. It unnerved me, that smile. It was the face of a predator playing with its prey. "We need to think this through. He's clearly expecting us to act rashly," but my heart didn't want to listen to reason. I could see the fear in the woman's eyes, feel the weight of her despair wrapping around my chest like a heavy shroud. "We can't just stand here," I whispered, the urgency rushing through me like an electric current. The intruder chuckled darkly, each laugh laced with malice. "Oh, but you see, I thrive on the irrational. It brings out the best in people, doesn't it?" He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "The moment you chose to oppose me, you sealed your fate. And lovely how you seek to save her, but at what cost?" My breath hitched as he waved his hand dismissively, revealing a sudden flurry of movement from the shadows, emerging behind him like phantoms. More figures joined the fray, their faces obscured under masks, silent, menacing, and undeniably a part of the nightmare tangling around us. "We can't," I began, but the officer moved in front of me again, her posture firm. "You don't get to dictate the terms of our choices. I end this game of chess," he replied, his venomous tone dripping with challenge. "You've just pushed your pawns too far forward. Now you'll witness the consequences." My heart raced as the first of the masked figures lunged at us and chaos erupted once more. The officer fired off a shot, a loud report that echoed through the corridor, causing the nearest figure to stagger but not fall. In that moment of distraction, the woman bound behind him cried out again, her voice rising above the frenzy. "Please, help me." "No," I shouted, my body tensing as another masked intruder surged forward, aimed at the source of her cries. There wasn't a choice left. We couldn't hesitate. I couldn't let despair claim her. Fueled by adrenaline and instinct, I broke away from the officer's protective stance and rushed forward. "Get her free," I called out, my determination unwavering, hoping the officer would understand what lay at stake. But just as I reached the woman, the lead intruder caught my shoulder, pulling me back with unexpected force. "Oh, but you've likely missed the most important rule," he said, the glee in his voice palpable. "In my game, if you try to play hero, you risk not only your life, but the lives of those you seek to save." I twisted out of his grasp with a surge of desperation, the woman's panicked gaze igniting a fire within me. I couldn't fail her not any longer. "No," I screamed. "That's not how this ends." In that brief moment of revelation, I felt a flicker of hope ignite as the officer managed to slip around the fray, her attention focused on the device the intruder had activated earlier. It was still counting down. "I'll handle this," she shouted, but the clock's insistent ticking added to the suffocating weight of hopelessness. Then, amidst the chaos, I caught a glimpse of something else, a small yet gleaming object rolling through the debris. It was the woman's sure belt buckle, glinting under the faint corridor light. Someone had already tried to free her, But every thwarted effort only cut deeper into my resolve. The intruder's eyes darkened, realizing too late what I was about to do. "You're really going to regret this," he sneered, but I was no longer listening. With a quick lunge, I grasped the woman's hands. Together, I gasped as I began untying the knots binding her arms. My own heart raced as the countdown continued, each number echoing like a death knell. Behind me, there was a shattering roar of gunfire, followed by the sound of bodies hitting the floor, and for a moment, time stilled the air thick with confusion and static. Fear. Had we done it? I shot a glance back towards the officer, but what greeted me was a scene of chaos I could never have prepared for. As the intruder stumbled backward, the mask slipped from one of his accomplices, revealing a face I recognized too well, a twisted smile framed by familiar features. "Surprise!" he yelled, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "You didn't think I'd let you run off with my little prize, did you?" My breath caught in my throat as I spun back to the woman. She was no longer just a captive. She was intertwined with a revelation that shattered the reality I thought I understood. "Please," she whimpered, tears streaming down her cheeks as her eyes flicked between the two men, desperately seeking solace. "Help me, I didn't know." But the weight of the revelation hung heavy in the air, and as chaos engulfed us once again, I realized that hope had transformed into a dark labyrinth from which there might be no escape. The heavy tension in the air felt suffocating as I fought to process the sight before me. The face I had once regarded with camaraderie now twisted into a mask of malevolence, feeding off the chaos that enveloped us. "No, it can't be you," I gasped, the disbelief coursing through me like icy water. My mind raced, scrabbling for answers even as time slipped cruelly forward. The officer was still engaged in frantic struggle, her gun raised as she attempted to assess targets amidst the confusion. Yet, the realization had struck hard. I was not simply fighting for a stranger. I was fighting against someone I knew intimately, someone I had trusted. "Why?" The words slipped from my lips in a pained whisper. "Why are you doing this?" My old friend's grin broadened, wickedness coloring his features. "You always were the naive one, thinking everyone could be saved. I'm just facilitating and understanding. Isn't it beautiful? The chaos? It strips away the masks we wear." He gestured theatrically to the scene around us, bodies scrambling, desperation in the air, cries of fear and pain mingling into a discordant melody. "Let her go." "This isn't a game," I pleaded, desperately looking at the woman, her expression torn between relief and terror. I could see the remnants of hope flickering in her eyes, yet it struggled against the growing shadows of despair. She hadn't asked for this. She hadn't asked to be tangled in this nightmarish web that had ensnared so many lives. Oh, but where's the fun in that? The glee in his voice was sickening. He stepped closer, as if feeding off my turmoil, savoring the moment. "You want to play knight in shining armor, don't you? But knights get killed too." Before I could think, I lunged forward again, but as I did, the world erupted into chaos once more. The officer's gun fired again, and I heard a cry, but it was drowned out by the rush of my heartbeat in my ears. Behind me, I felt the woman's hand brush against my arm, a tender, shaking gesture that communicated a hope I desperately needed. That little spark ignited something inside me, knitting together the torn pieces of my resolve. "All I need is time," I murmured, courage bubbling to the surface. "I have to save you. I won't let him win." "Look at her," my friend taunted, his voice dripping with disdain. "You think she's worth it? A lost cause. It'll only lead to more suffering." "Silence!" shouted the officer, her focus unwavering as she continued to defend our precarious position. Each shot she fired felt like a mantra: survival. The intruder snarled back, undeterred, and that's when I caught sight of an opportunity, a flicker of movement at the far end of the corridor where shadows loomed thick. My heart hesitated for half a second, considering the gamble it would mean to abandon everything for what lay hidden in the dim light. In that fleeting moment, clarity washed over me. I turned back to the officer. "Cover me." It was a single breath, a surge of adrenaline powering my limbs into action as I pushed my way to the shadow beneath the stairway, praying fervently that it would yield something, anything that might give us the chance we so desperately needed. The woman gasped as I pulled short, unable to make sense of my frenzied movement. "Trust me," I called back, urging her with my gaze, willing her to understand that sometimes hope lies in the unexpected. That I crouched low, expecting to be met by dark reality, but instead, my fingers wrapped around something crisp and cold. I pulled it into the light, a baton, sturdy and enough to balance the odds. It felt powerful in my grip, a blessed reminder that I had not surrendered my strength. As I turned back to the unfolding chaos, the officer was staggering, her body careening dangerously close to an edge. "No!" I shouted, charging back to her, but it was too late. In an instant, the world twisted and snapped around me as the intruder lunged toward her, and she stumbled back, teetering on the brink of falling into the abyss of darkness behind her. I threw myself forward, adrenaline surged through me, but before I could reach her, despair pricked my heart with a chilling reality. Another masked figure appeared from the shadows, a weapon glinting in hand, aimed straight at the officer. "You're too late for saviors," he hissed, and in that moment, the piercing sound of a gunshot rang out. Time slowed, the air thick with the weight of what was about to transpire. With a shocking twist, the officer's eyes widened. A figure emerging from behind someone I had thought friend and ally shot forward, sending the baton flying from my grasp. I barely had time to register the horror of betrayal washing over me before the bullets began to fly, and in that breathless instant, everything changed. Hope hanging in the balance, just like the officer, the woman, and an entire future quivered precariously on the edge, teetering in the face of betrayal, despair, and choices long gone wrong. The sound of the shot rang in my ears like an unrelenting bell tolling for those lost. I felt it resonate deep within my chest, a dreadful echo of dread that reverberated through the very core of my being. As the weight of that moment and the undeniable truth of betrayal swirled around us, time stretched and folded in on itself. What had once felt like a fighting chance now seemed like a dwindling ember in a merciless storm, flickering helplessly against the onslaught of darkness. That I had never known despair until that very moment. The faces around me blurred as reality slipped from my fingers like sand through an hourglass, each grain representing a choice I had made or a bond one had forged. Everything I thought I was protecting, a woman, the officer, even the tenuous friendships that had begun to form now felt ancient, brittle, ready to crumble beneath the weight of betrayal. The officer collapsed, the breath knocked from her. My heart screamed violently, an instinctive lurch that sent adrenaline coursing through my veins. "No!" I shouted, breaking free from the icy grip of shock that had rooted me in place. It was as if the world fell away, leaving only the overpowering pulsing need to save her. But the intruder, my once friend, blocked my path, his laughter slicing through the tension like a knife. "Let's watch the hero scramble," he sneered, eyes glinting with anticipation. Perfectly delightful. My grip tightened around the baton I had just retrieved, but the rush of panic gripped me hard. No longer could I protect anyone standing in my way. The moment surged forward as I stepped closer, resolute even as fear threatened to swallow me whole. For her. For the woman bound and helpless. For the officer, who had shown bravery when things turned dark. "Step aside," I barked, heart pounding in a frantic rhythm as I faced my old friend, every pulse carrying a weight of desperation and resolve. "You want a game? Then let's end this once and for all." He hesitated, uncertainty now dancing in his eyes. Perhaps he sensed the shift, the collective courage surging around us like an electric tide. I could feel the others behind me drawing strength, readying themselves for the fight. But then came the flash of darkness. A masked figure began moving on instinct, those cold hands reaching for the officer, who lay defenseless on the floor. Just then, the world around us erupted once more as our resolve surged into action. I lunged forward with all I had, swinging the baton high, connecting firmly against the intruder's arm as he tried to block my strike. A glimmer of shock crossed his features, and in that heartbeat of astonishment, the air crackled with possibility. "Get to her," I called out, pushing through. Time twisted as I could see the woman's eyes wide with fear and determination, still fighting against the binding rope retained on her wrists. The officer was now knelt beside the cascade of chaos, that moment of vulnerability metamorphosing into a fierce spirit. The other masked figures reeled, and in that beautiful inception of chaos and hope, the woman was breaking free of her bonds all on her own. As she tore through the restraints, unfolding like a wildflower breaking through concrete, I felt a fierce surge of joy bolstering me from within. "Join me. We're getting out of here," I shouted, taking a hit from one of the attackers in the chaos, but pressing forward. My entire being centered around her trust. She spiraled, a flame of hope igniting in the heat of the conflict, rushing towards the officer who had begun to regain her footing. The sound of sirens blared outside, the echoes growing louder, building momentum. The figures around me began to shift, fear creeping into their movements. I could sense it. The tide was changing, and in that thrilling moment, we were no longer trapped. We were battle-hardened survivors, rallying across tempestuous waters. There was a unified cry, a shout of courage breaking free as we moved together against the tide of adversity. The honored bond forming in our simultaneous struggle fueled a resurgence of strength. As I turned to face my old friend, my heart pounded with a resounding question. How had he become a ghost of the man I once knew? "Remember when we would help each other?" I shouted, voice hoarse with emotion, eyes locking in desperation. "What happened to that?" But he looked away, anguish mingling with malice, as if he had long since abandoned that connection. We surged forward, the officer covering our retreat, while the woman gained resilience by my side. Pushing forward and forging a path, we put distance between ourselves and the chaos. Moments stretched infinitely like the night sky, yet the hope of dawn was nearing in that glint of sirens, and sirens' lights flickered through the remaining shadows, and as we burst from the corridor into a confusion of flashing lights and yelling voices, a symphony of adrenaline surged through me, filled with life and resolve. Each breath reminded me we were no longer bound free at last. Just as I was about to succumb to the dizzying relief that followed, the familiar grip of fear wrapped around my heart once again. I turned back towards the hallway, the distant sound of my old friend's taunts echoing from behind. He hadn't followed. You could never outrun the shadows. They clung like an affliction to those who once knew the light. But as I stood amidst the chaos that still thrummed around me, I finally understood my truth. Forgiveness wasn't about him anymore. It was about accepting the intricate tapestry of pain and choice that had shaped us all. "Let him go," I found myself whispering, free from the burdens that once held me captive. Just like that, with every pulse of courage building in my chest, I found my closure. It would never erase the darkness, but from its ashes, I could build a new. As the sunlight broke through the night, illuminating the world around us, I looked into the woman's eyes, longing for our fated connection realized in a single breath. "Together," I said, barely breaking the silence as strength spilled from us in unwavering waves. In that moment, standing hand in hand with those who endured, I realized life would unfurl forward, each chapter written anew, and so, under the bright glare of hope, I finally whispered to myself, "This is not the end."